You're tuned into DecayMag podcast, online source for horror, thriller and sci-fi entertainment news.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to DecayMag podcast, season 6, episode 10. I am your host, Ken R2's founder for DecayMag. You can find us on the web on DecayMag.com. That is DecayMag.com. And of course, we are on Google Music. We are on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter. Well, this is season 6, episode 10, and I have much to cover. It is the holiday season right now, while everyone is gearing up to have some pernil and arroz con gandules, or some dried up turkey or very oversaturated salty ham. I'm working on this podcast before I get into the festivities. So, in this podcast, we'll be presenting exclusive interviews with filmmaker Jed Bryan, and we'll be discussing his full feature found footage film titled Unlisted Owner. We conclude our exclusive interview segment with actress Bel Deliá. She stars in the psychological thriller, the award-winning psychological thriller titled Scratch. Continued coverage on the film Scratch. I had the pleasure to speak with screenwriter for the film, Helen Shang. So don't miss those exclusive interviews, very informative. If you want to learn and know the intricacies, the business, the drive of filmmakers and writers in horror films, do check out these exclusive interviews. And I must note, starting in 2018, we'll be reformatting our podcast. So we will be separating our exclusive interviews, and it would be titled DecayMag Sessions. And the sessions are exclusive interviews with filmmakers, composers, directors in the field. That will be a separate component starting in 2018. Of course, we will be continuing our podcast. DecayMag podcast will continue its regular schedule structure and programming. This is our dedication in providing more content for you, the audiences, so you don't have to wait every week for an exclusive interview. The interviews will be a standalone component, which I believe will be more interesting because you could now tune in to a particular interview that you want to get to know the person behind the film or the music. Well, back to this podcast, season 6, episode 10. I'm going to be covering some information on the Hellraiser Judgement, Tremors 6, some information on the Halloween reboot scheduled to release next year. I also will be following up with insights on video games, science fiction, horror video games, and of course we'll be concluding our podcast with our trademark trailer first impressions. So without further ado, here is DecayMag podcast season 6, episode 10.
Movies. Hellraiser Judgement gets release date.
After the controversy and criticism from a certain percentage in the horror community, it seems as though the next installment of Hellraiser will finally see the light of day. To refresh memories and or to inform those in the audience that are unaware, here's some backstory on Hellraiser Judgement. Gary J. Tunnicliffe directed and wrote Hellraiser Judgement. Tunnicliffe also wrote Hellraiser Revelations, which for most fans, including myself, found Revelations to be a disaster. Second, this is another issue with the film Hellraiser Judgement, and it centers on actor Doug Bradley. Bradley portrayed Pinhead. In fact, the English-born actor embodies the demonic, leather-clad, sadomasochistic character. Bradley and Tunnicliffe did not see eye to eye, and here's an excerpt from Bradley's Facebook page detailing the situation and why he wasn't a part of Hellraiser Judgement. Quote, Gary said he would send me a copy of the script when he had completed a second draft, but before I could be allowed to set eyes on the precious document, I was required to sign a gagging order. This was a 3-page document preventing me from talking about the script in restrooms, on elevators, in restaurants, or in cellular telephone conversations which may be overheard. There was also dark reference to people talking out of turn at conventions. I read this thing in disbelief and informed Gary I would not be signing it. And that's it. Clearly, I am deemed too much of a security risk to be allowed to read a Hellraiser script. People are starving to death in Syria, and they're worried about me talking about a Hellraiser movie. Get a fucking grip. Can you say sense of proportion? Unquote. So, the synopsis for Hellraiser Judgement reads as follows. Detective Sean and David Carter are on the case to find a gruesome serial killer terrorizing the city. Joining forces with Detective Christine Egerton, they dig deeper into a spiraling maze of horror that may not be of this world. So here's the latest news for Hellraiser Judgement. Amazon has a listing of the film with a release date set for February 13th, 2018. The medium would be a Blu-ray release, and pre-orders are available for this hellbound entrant to the Hellraiser franchise. Now, I think I joined the consensus here in saying that I am not looking forward to this installment for Hellraiser Judgement. It also needs to be clear that Clive Barker has no connection with this film whatsoever. I think Clive Barker would much rather go his own direction and reinvigorate, jumpstart the genre, and provide his own vision of this very terrifying and innovative characters. The Hellraiser franchise has declined dramatically over the years with each installment. The first 2 movies in the series, in my opinion, were the best, with the original being the prime source of terror. The sequel, not so much. But this goes to show you that horror franchises, when it's taken over by another film director or re-envisioned in some way, it starts losing its appeal. And this is not the first case. We've seen it countless many times before. Another example that comes to mind is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series. Well, if you want to check out the latest installment to the franchise, the Hellraiser franchise, you're gonna have to wait to the 13th of February on Blu-ray disc.
Tremors 6 gets an official title.
Tremors is a long-standing horror franchise. These slate of creature feature films have extended 28 years, beginning with a 1990 release directed by Ron Underwood, based on the writing team of S.S. Wilson, Brent Maddock, and of course, Ron Underwood was part of the writing team. The first Tremors installment featured actor Kevin Bacon in the lead, but it was Michael Gross that remained as a staple protagonist in the franchise. The latest installment to the Tremors franchise would be labeled as a PG-13 flick, and it would be subtitled A Cold Day in Hell. Fans of the Tremors franchise would have to wait till May 2018 for the release to surface on both Blu-ray and DVD. Tremors A Cold Day in Hell is directed by Don Michael Paul and is based on a script written by John Welpe. And the synopsis reads as follows. The sequel finds Bert Gummer and his son Travis at a remote research station where they must go up against graboids that have been converted into living weapons. Sci-Fi has a Tremors series in the works, and it would feature the return of Kevin Bacon. Ironically, Michael Gross, who he has seen in most of the feature films, will not be in this extension of the franchise. Michael Gross, in a Facebook posting, wrote the following informational tidbit. Quote, "For Tremors fans who have been asking, will Kevin Bacon return to the films? Or is your Bert Gummer character going to be in Kevin's series? I think we can say with a good deal of certainty that the answer to both questions is no. The series is currently shooting in and around Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I have no other details," unquote. So there you have it. We have a title for Tremors 6, which is subtitled A Cold Day in Hell. Sci-Fi is creating the series starring Kevin Bacon, and the series would not feature Michael Gross. Also, the sixth installment is PG-13, which in my opinion, pretty much the whole series is a PG-13 collective, because these films are more centered as a creature feature comedy than a creature feature horror film, and it does fall in line with Sci-Fi's approach to these themes. You could just go into the roster of films that Sci-Fi has released, and the majority of them have that campy feel of creature features. Nevertheless, this is a series, and the production value would be much more enhanced than a full feature film on Sci-Fi or a Sci-Fi devoted feature film. And if you want evidence, just check out the slate of films Sci-Fi has released in comparison to the original programming. The original programming they dedicate more attention to the graphics. It should be the other way around though. Well, so I'm looking forward to Tremors. I have not seen, aside from the original film and released in 1990 with Kevin Bacon, I have not seen the rest of the entrants in this franchise. I should. I believe one of them also starred comedian Jamie Kennedy. That seemed kind of off to me when I first noticed it, but yeah, I'll give this one a watch. And if it's on Sci-Fi, there are very few shows on Sci-Fi I have not seen. So yeah, I will be giving this a watch. And everything is better with some bacon. So Kevin Bacon is gonna be well received in this series.
Halloween reboot features original shape.
The Halloween reboot is scheduled for release by Universal Pictures on Friday, October 19th, 2018. I know, another fucking reboot. Yet many in the horror community seem interested in this reimagination that, according to the creative minds behind it, will disregard the installments in the Halloween franchise. In an interview with Screenwr, Halloween creator John Carpenter issued the following statement about Jamie Lee Curtis and her return to portray the character Laurie Strode. Quote, "No, she talked to the director. Her part was written into the script and they had this idea. It's kind of I don't know how to describe it. It's almost an alternative reality. It picks up after the first one and it pretends that none of the others were made. It's gonna be fun. There is a really talented director and it was well written. I'm impressed." Unquote. The original Halloween, released in 1978, and the 2018 version not only brings Jamie Lee Curtis, John Carpenter back into the production, but also Bloody Disgusting has confirmed that Nick Castle will reprise his role as the character, The Shape, aka Michael Myers. The synopsis to the original Halloween reads as follows. 15 years after murdering his sister on Halloween night 1963, Michael Myers escapes from a mental hospital and returns to the small town of Haddonfield to kill again. In 2018 reboot to this slasher classic, the director would be Deborah Hill, and she would also be part of the writing team that consists of David Gordon Green, Danny McBride, and of course is based on the characters created by John Carpenter, and this information is sourced from imdb.com. Now, from my personal view, I fucking despise reboots. I think these type of films are uncreative, and pretty much you're piggybacking off the idea of another creator. You don't have any ideas, Hollywood. So we have seen this tragedy time and time again with horror films being reinvigorated. Take, for example, The Mummy. It is a combination of Mission Impossible meets a Universal Studio movie monster. It's pitiful, it's sad, and this is the way Hollywood is going with these reboots. Now, mind you, there are a few gems. Take, for example, Dawn of the Dead. Very excellent remake, a reimagination of the zombies. They run, it was more terrifying. The characters were spot on, well portrayed. Of course, there are those few reboots and remakes that do make it, but in the sea of reboots, the cons outweigh the pros. So, as I had mentioned in my presentation, most in the horror community are looking forward to this reboot for Halloween. Is bringing back the original cast. And I must point out that Nick Castle, he's in his 70s and he's got to reprise his role as The Shape. That's outstanding. I find that to be, not only does you're bringing back the characters, but you're not going to see a gargantuan serial killer, just as how Rob Zombie did in his in his vision of Halloween. I think those visions, although they were cinematically well put together, it was pathetic because Michael Myers is not some type of white trash redneck. That's the way he was portrayed in these films, and his family were. That's not the vision of a suburban type serial killer. Totally off the wall on that, in that regard. I do have to emphasize that the cinematic quality was good in Rob Zombie's film, but I personally don't appreciate that type of flair for these characters. Anyway, Jamie Lee Curtis is back, Nick Castle's back, John Carpenter is on the scene to change the wrongs that were done to this franchise, and there were many wrongs, as I had mentioned in my previous presentation on Hellraiser, the first presentation. There are horror film franchises that have gone down the drain because of the vision of the filmmaker or the writer, and this is another case. The Halloween franchise. Hopefully this reboot would do justice. Let's see what would happen, and if it falls down the drain as previous installments to the franchise, I would say leave it alone. Let Michael Myers rest in peace, just as how Jason is, and go the route of video game platforms. That is the new medium now. Filmmakers, with your original content, pay attention. Don't fucking be making any more reboots or remakes or trying to reinvigorate your idea. Go to do video games. Take your characters into the video game realm. Look at the success of Friday the 13th and how is it doing on the video game platform. And of course, you have the original actor, well, not really the original, one of the best portrayals of Jason there is. So he's in that video game. You could do the same with Michael Myers. Even more terrifying.
Exclusive interview. Filmmaker Jed Bryan, Unlisted owner.
I know you guys are still mad at us for this move, but look at this big house. Give me a couple years, I'll fix it up, and you will love it. It'll be perfect!
I don't know what to do. I think someone's in the house. I don't know where everybody is.
Breaking news from the Wofford County Sheriff's Department. A family of 5 has been found dead in their homes this morning around 8:15 a.m. There are no other details at this time.
On Wednesday, December 20th, 2017, I had the pleasure to speak with filmmaker Jed Bryan. The topic of conversation centered on the drive and business aspect for his full feature release titled Unlisted Owner, now available on Amazon. The synopsis to Unlisted Owner reads as follows. The owner house has been vacant for several years because of its very dark history, but with the recent series of murders, it has been taken to the next level. A family who just moved in has been murdered, causing the curiosity of a group of friends to get the best of them. Deciding to break in and investigate with the handheld cameras would be the worst decision of their fun-filled night. The terrifying and suspenseful footage has been edited for the film Unlisted Owner. This is from imdb.com. Unlisted Owner is a found footage film, and although it is one of my least favorite genres in horror cinema, I find the passion behind the project to be fascinating and inspiring. Below is an excerpt from the official press release. Unlisted Owner was written and directed by Illinois native Jed Bryan, starring Galvin Groves, Heidi Corona, Andrea Potts, Jed Bryan, Tyler Landers, and Levi Atkins. The film was released on DVD and through Amazon streaming on Amazon starting November 14, 2017. The film was filmed entirely in southeastern Illinois' town of Sumner by Jed Bryan's production company, Lawford County Production. Having a cast mostly from the Sumner area and actress Haiti Corona from Shelbyville, Illinois, the film has a strong Midwestern feel. The film is being released by Tomcat Films / Summerhill Films. Unlisted Owner has had a powerful opening on Amazon, with pre-orders since launching 11 weeks ago. The film has had stiff competition competing against some of the most fan-filled horror franchises like It and American Horror Story Season 6, to new film releases such as 47 Meters Down and Jeepers Creepers 3. Writer-director Jed Bryan said the following, quote, "It is so amazing to see Unlisted Owner do so well competing against such well-known new releases in the toughest time of competition for a horror film," unquote. That was an excerpt from the official press release DecayMag received in our inbox. Now, stay tuned to DecayMag.com for our film review for this film, Unlisted Owner. But do pay attention to some of the insights on the business aspect and the drive behind getting this film on Amazon, and not only that, production and vision to the film. As I had mentioned before, found footage films is not my personal favorite in the horror genre, but that nevertheless, filmmakers devote so much time and effort, sweat, blood, tears, money into the production to push this forward. Sometimes reviews are negative, sometimes they are positive, and you must take both in order to develop yourself, to develop your creativity. Don't just take the positive and forget the negative. The negative responses, creative negative responses, are beneficial for your creative path. Always remember that. So, if a review is creative in its negative approach, do take that into consideration. This goes across the board for filmmakers, artists, writers, anything that has to do with the creative realm. Always take both context of positivity and negativity. With that said, I'm straying off the topic for a bit, but do check out our review for Unlisted Owner. Do give a listen to what filmmaker Jed Bryan has to say and his push to get his vision realized. And also note, Jed Bryan does not live in Hollywood or in the surrounding areas of Hollywood, nor does he live in New York, where access to networking channels or persons in the film industry is easily accessible. He resides in a town of Illinois where these resources are limited. And yet, here we have Unlisted Owner going up against top names, productions in horror on Amazon, and it's in the top tier. Amazing shit. Pay attention, ladies and gentlemen. If you're an aspiring writer, filmmaker, artist, pay attention to this shit. This is the shit that you need to listen to if you have doubts in your work. Well, without further ado, here is my interview with filmmaker Jed Bryan. My name is Ken Artuz, founder for DecayMag. Joining me this evening is Jed Bryan, independent filmmaker, and we're going to be discussing his latest release, Unlisted Owner. Thank you for joining me, Mr. Bryan.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And the opening question is basically telling the audience, for those who may not know who you are, a bit of a backstory or an origin story, if you may. Consider yourself the superhero, and let's and start from the humble beginnings.
All right. Well, I'm a southeastern Illinois filmmaker. I'm based out of a little town called Sumner, Illinois. It has 1,100 people. And probably I would say when I first got out of high school, I kept getting ideas for different movie ideas, script ideas. So me and some buddies, we had all started writing different scripts and stuff. And we actually made a teaser trailer for a script I had written called Meth House that we didn't have the funds to make. So we just kind of made a teaser trailer and put it out there on YouTube to see if we could get any, buzz from it, which it didn't really go anywhere. And then we ended up doing a GoDaddy commercial contest. I think we got 8th out of 539 videos. So and when we got 8th in that, we thought, well, maybe we should actually try to do something. So I finally came up with the concept to be able to make our own film. So I kind of wrote a script around the budget that we had to make a film with, and ended up being Unlisted Owner.
Wow.
So that's kind of how everything began and started in a nutshell. And as far as horror goes, ever since I was a kid, I've always been interested in horror movies. And my parents took us to haunted houses, and my mom had actually bought me a VHS of House on Haunted Hill with Vincent Price. Love that film. And then I had the monster movie King Kong versus Godzilla. And then my mom had also let me watch the movie The Witches with Angelica Houston. So I've always had like a horror background. I've always loved horror films. So to be able to make one myself, it was just, awesome. Icing on the cake.
And it's funny that you insert that your mom allowed you to, because most moms, for filmmakers, and including myself, we weren't allowed to watch horror films. So you are fortunate.
Well, I'll put it to you this way. To a certain extent, like my mom wouldn't let me watch the Halloween films or things like that. I mean, when I was a kid, one night my parents had HBO, and I'd snuck downstairs and I'd watched a little bit of Puppet Master. I think it was Puppet Master 2, and that gave me nightmares. And but yeah, they kind of kept it a little bit PG, but they wouldn't let me watch, the Jason or the Michael Myers and stuff like that. So, but I mean, at least I was able to watch those, the B movies and, the classic horror films as a kid. So I was pretty lucky in that aspect.
Right. Yeah. And believe me, I did the same thing myself. Sneak out of the room and look through the crack of the door to see what type of horror movie they were watching. Always got caught, though.
Yeah. Like, go to bed. We don't have to deal with you later, right?
Exactly. For Unlisted Owner, let's talk about the business perspective. How difficult was it to accrue the funds to get the ball rolling and get this production from script to screen?
Well, I funded the entire film myself, and it's a found footage style film. So with it being found footage, we were able to cut a few corners. We didn't have to have a boom mic operator. We didn't have to have different grips and things of that nature, different cranes or do crane shots or anything like that, or steady cam even, the actor was the one in control of the camera. So we were able to save a lot of costs there. And then also in the town I live, I'm actually a volunteer firefighter. So being a volunteer firefighter, I was able to have access to police and ambulance and fire to be able to have that sequence in the film. And so I was able to cut a lot of corners that way. And then also, as far as the actors in the film, most of them are just my friends. So whenever I wrote the script, kind of wrote around like the type of dialogue I would see them say as this character, and kind of like their different mannerisms and stuff. So I didn't have to go do hardcore casting to be able to get the actors in the film. I already knew who was going to play the parts, so I saved money that way as well.
Interesting. And for the area of southeastern Illinois, is it difficult to acquire the talent, the actors? And I'm not talking SAG. I'm talking about upcoming actors.
Right. Yeah. It was. I mean, like I said before, everybody who's in the film is actually from the area I live in, with the exception of one of the female leads, Heidi Corona. She is from Shelbyville, Indiana, which is up by Indianapolis, and she was attending a local university in Vincennes, Indiana at the time. So everybody else, some of the people in the film had done different little theater things, but nothing like a feature-length film. So everybody was green at doing it, and I was very happy with the result we ended up with. When we first started, I wasn't sure, but I also wanted to give them as much, flexibility as possible. Like before we would shoot a scene, we'd do a round table read, and if they would say, well, I don't see my character saying this, or this would be more natural for me to say or easier for me to say, as long as it didn't change the main direction of the film or the backbone of the conversation that the characters were having, then I would allow it to kind of give it more of that natural flow to try to make it look as believable as possible.
Right. And for found footage concept, I see that a lot of performers, the actors, they go more with the heart, improv. So it's interesting to see that you went with the more improv direction and becoming it more natural.
Yeah, for sure. I that's one thing I've seen in many horror films, is that sometimes the dialogue is so dry, and you can tell that the actors are trying too hard. And I just wanted to make it look as natural as possible. I wanted it to look like this is a group of friends that bicker and argue a lot, and sometimes there's two protagonists that just kind of get everybody into trouble. And I kind of want to really drive that home and try to make it believable. Like, look, this could be a group of millennials, bored one evening and go off and get into trouble.
Interesting. And you opened up your own production company, Lawford County Productions.
Yes.
And the film Unlisted Owner is the debut for your production company?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, so far we've only actually shot a couple of things. We did that GoDaddy commercial, and then we did a teaser trailer, which the teaser trailer was kind of the first incarnation of us trying to shoot different things just to see what we could do. But as far as Unlisted Owner goes, yeah, it's our first film, and the actual production company name, Lawford County Productions. There actually is no Lawford County. It's a fictional county that in a lot of my scripts, I have this county in the different scripts. I mean, there could be a Lawford County, Illinois. There could be a Lawford County, Texas. There could be a Lawford County, Tennessee, or Kentucky even. So I kind of generate this fictional county name that all these different events take place in all my different scripts.
Okay, thank you. And now that you have your film, you completed the production, you have your company going, what was next? See, you did everything self-distribution and self-marketing?
Well, not exactly. We actually have a distribution company. They're called Tomcat Films or Summerhill Films out of Phoenix, Arizona. And how we were able to acquire the distribution deal, we'd actually tried the film festival route with not very good success with that. We didn't get into a lot of the ones we had submitted to. So, and everything I had read up to that point was, to be able to get a distribution deal, you need to get it into the festivals and you need to get the word out about it. So I'd actually found out about the American film market in Santa Monica, California. So we saved up some money and we went out there and we'd actually showed the film twice. And we'd sent out screeners to the different distribution companies. And by the end of AFM, we had several distribution companies interested in the film, and we narrowed it down to 3, and we ended up signing with Tomcat.
Wow. And that is very interesting that I see that there was a bit of a setback. You guys did not get into the film festivals, but now you've proven to be successful on Amazon, reaching number 9 against top budget. Well, in the indie scene, these are pretty much top budget films. Oh
yes, for sure. Yeah, it was pretty amazing. We found, I think it was September 21st 21st or 22nd that the film was available for pre-order on Amazon, and it was actually going to come out November 14th. So as soon as we found out it was coming out, we got the word out and put it on Facebook and all of our social media platforms. And the next evening, a friend of mine had actually contacted me and said, "Hey, you guys are number 14 on Amazon's hot new horror release list." So I had to hurry up and go to the page, and there we were. And we had made it all the way up to number 9 on that list, and it was in October, and Walking Dead season 7 had just came out, so we were going up against that TV show. American Horror Story season 6, 47 Meters Down, Call to Chucky. So we were going up against all these films, and it was just pre-orders for us being able to drive it up to number 9. And we've been on the top 100 list for 12 weeks now. So we're very, very blessed for that, for sure.
Congratulations for that.
Well, thank you.
These are the small steps that filmmakers yearn for, and you guys did it on the first try. That's awesome.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, we also had found out the film has recently been, it's on iTunes now. You can also pick it up on Barnes & Noble's website, Turner Classic Movies website, FYE's website, and then also if you're a gamer, you can get it on your Xbox. So, of course, I had to buy it for my Xbox,
Of course. And I'm assuming it will be for the PlayStation as well.
I'm assuming. I haven't heard an official announcement on that, but I'm hoping it will be, because I'd love to get it on as many platforms as possible, that's for sure.
And for social media, Facebook, you just finished mentioning, how influential was that in getting the word out for Unlisted owner?
Oh yeah, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, they were all very key to the success of Unlisted owner, because we'd actually started on, when you talked about the setbacks, we'd actually finished filming in 2013, and we actually submitted to the film festivals in 14, and at the end of 14 we found out it wasn't getting very much traction. So the following year, it was later that year, I went out to Los Angeles and found out about the American film market, and I found out I had just missed it by a couple of days. So I had to spend the whole next year preparing to go to the American film market. And then after the American film market, it took about another half a year to get a distribution deal after I heard back from all the different distribution companies. Then we ended up having to do all our deliverables and finally got the release this year. So next film we do, that part will take a lot less time. And actually the filmmaking part will take longer, I'm hoping.
Right. Well, it's the journey of the filmmaker. You learn along the way. You learn from the mistakes, and the next time around, everything will seem. That's the key word. Much easier.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, because like I said, we're based out of a small town, Sumner, in southeastern Illinois, where the closest mall to where I live at is an hour and a half away. So to be able to take a film that was filmed entirely here and then be able to see it number 9 on Amazon's top hot new horror releases goes to show you that it doesn't matter where you live or what you come from, as long as you believe in what you do and think you have a good product and just keep pushing. Even if you don't get success in the film festivals and stuff, it doesn't mean you still can't get your product out there for people to see and have success with it.
Absolutely. And from everything that you have described, not getting into the film festivals, not getting into AFM on time, was there any point that you would say to yourself, you know what, I'm just going to give up for this for a while? What kept you going to get this product out on the market?
Well, I believe that what we had was a good product, and a lot of times, found footage is kind of acquired taste for certain people. It's not a traditionally shot film. All my other scripts are all traditional, but this is the first found footage film that I'd actually written, and so to be able to see that aspect of being able to make something to save money on, and just keep grinding, and just knowing that you have something good if the right people see it. It's been described as a reality show gone off the rails, this film. So I believed I had something good, and if you just believe in yourself and you just keep pushing, you never know where it's going to end up.
Yes, I'm a firm believer of that as well. and you have to love what you do and do what you love. And then when you know that you have something of value for your core audience, you have to do everything possible to just get it out there.
That's right. And the fact, we had 3 distribution companies that believed in us enough that, they're willing to stick their neck out and say, look, this is a good product that we're willing to stake our name on to be able to get it out there, really says a lot too.
Right. And also touching on the business aspect of the film, shooting in a found footage aesthetic kept costs down. Do you think that would have been a wise choice to go the traditional route, even with the access to crowdfunding platforms?
Well, Unlisted Owner, it could be, it could have been a traditionally style film, but the way I shot the different camera angles and different points of view and things like that, it wouldn't have worked as well. I kind of just wrote this script around a found footage style. It wasn't a script I had originally written and said, oh, well, if I make this found footage, it'll be a lot, cheaper to make. No, this is a found footage from the beginning. I would love to make a traditionally shot film, but the found footage was kind of a good stepping stone because, like I said, we had done the teaser trailer and we had done the GoDaddy commercial to see if we could actually make something that's 74 minutes long. To be able to do the found footage style was a really good test for us, and it really did prove that, hey, we can do a traditionally shot film now, no problem. So, but with this film, it wasn't just someone walking around with a video camera. We even had a set for the film. We had a scene that had an attic space, and the house that we shot in didn't have an attic space. We actually had to have a fake room built to the specs of the real room to make it look believable. So, we had to do some special effects stuff like that. It was kind of crazy. So we definitely learned a lot though during the process.
And during the filmmaking process, you're the writer, director. What other areas of production did you wear a hat in? Being that is indie filmmaking, when you're the writer, director, you wear many hats. What was some of the other work that you've done?
I also acted in the film. I was one of the main characters in the film. I was the main camera operator in the film. I also produced the film. I also edited the film. I had a co-editor with me. I'm also currently marketing the film as well as my distribution company. So I'm just I wore a lot of hats in this project. I came up with the story. I wrote the story. I had actually Kyler Landers, who also acts in the film. He co-wrote some of the story as well. But for the most part, it's I wore a lot of hats for it. That's for sure.
And I can see what the passion drives. He's like, I'm definitely gonna get this out. There's a lot of work that went into this.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, a lot of long hours in the editing room. In the film, we did these things called blend edits, is what we called them, or jerk edits. And what we would do is a lot of found footage films, whenever they're filming, they do these hard edits where it stops, and then all of a sudden there's another scene that pops up. So we wanted to try to make these scenes look like one long fluid scene. So what we would do is we would shoot a scene, and then we dip a little bit into the next one, and I would drop the camera down. And then when we shoot that next scene, I would go back into the last scene, do that same dip, and then when we cut it and put it in the editor side by side, it would look like one fluid motion. And I remember one time in particular, we were trying to do a blend edit to where I was leaving a vehicle, and we were looking at it for about 15 minutes, and I sat there thinking, something's not right here. There's something off. I kept seeing the edit, and I wasn't supposed to. And what had happened is the character Gavin had taken the keys out of the vehicle, and then whenever I left the vehicle, my actors who were waiting in the vehicle for the scene to be over, they had gotten cold, and I told them just to start it up, and I wasn't thinking. So whenever we put them in the editor, it went from no sound of the vehicle running to all of a sudden I'm outside the vehicle and it's running. So we had to go back and reshoot that entire scene just because of that car running.
Well, at least you caught on to that. There were some filmmakers that don't catch it, and then the continuity issues come into play, and audiences they catch on to that stuff. Yeah,
and that's another thing I learned. I let the cast pretty much pick out their own costumes, and they brought what they wore to cut down on costs. But next time I'm going to definitely buy the costumes for the people to wear and have them change on set, because well, with that mess up scene, we had to go back and shoot excuse me, and one of the actresses couldn't find her shirt that she had on her overshirt, and one of the actors couldn't find his fake glasses that he was wearing. So to be able to have to go to all these different department stores and try to find this exact looking shirt was almost an impossible task.
Yes, that is so true. That's where the wardrobe do come in, because they have more than one shirt. Yes. Yeah, so for any independent filmmakers out there who are aspiring, make sure that you buy the costumes for the actors and keep track of it. Exactly, right. Oh, yeah. I had that type of experience myself, and in one project, it seemed similar to yours, that they didn't bring their shirt, and it was, the person was a small, we only had a large, so, yeah, I understand the headache. Yeah, it can be quite stressful. One of our actors in the film, he had a goatee to start out with. Well, then he got a new job to where he couldn't have a goatee any longer. So we had to time the scene to where he would have a few days off, to where he'd have a little bit of scruff to make it look like he still had a goatee, and just try not to concentrate the camera too much on him. But that was another struggle we had. And you mentioned you work in your community. How difficult was it to find the time for your employment, your day job, and creating your project? Well, we actually shot on the weekends for the most part. We did have a couple of scheduling conflicts. We had a couple of the actors. One worked every weekend during the day, and then another one worked every other weekend. So it was kind of difficult, but we were able to get the scheduling conflicts resolved. With my job, I was able to take off whenever I needed to, so that worked out all right. But like I said, we had a couple of actors that were having some scheduling conflicts, but we got through them, we pushed through them. So, but one thing that I was so grateful for is that everybody who was in the film was very, very reliable. I didn't have anybody who was late, who didn't show up, because like I've said before in other interviews, if you're in a band and your drummer all of a sudden doesn't show up to your gig, you can always find another drummer in one of the opening bands or something to fill in possibly, or just, if you've got a whole bunch of shows you're going to do, you can find a replacement drummer. If you make a movie and you get halfway through and one of your lead actors says, "I'm out," you got to go back through and reshoot everything that you'd already shot. And yeah, so that is a huge headache, and that would increase your cost, because there's no way you could replace the whatever role that person is in. Yeah, that's a big issue. And then you're also, if you have to do that, the actor that you may get to replace that person may not do as good a job as what they were doing during the film. So you always run that risk as well. Absolutely. So for the concept for Unlisted Owner, what was the origin story that influenced this script? Well, the origin is basically, the film is based around a legend of this house that a man named Thomas Colton supposedly murdered his family and had lit the bodies on fire in the basement. And this house has been vacant for several years, and a new family has just moved in, and they've been murdered. So a group of friends, including myself, which I have a new video camera, so I'm filming everything, and we hear about the family of 5 that's been murdered in this house, and it's about a mile away from where we're getting ready to do this weekend camping trip at. So we show up to the house, and there's police cars and ambulances there, and they're pulling a body out of the house, and the character Griffin says, "I don't want to go camping this close to where someone's been murdered." Well, we convince him to go camping anyways, so we're out at the campsite partying, having a good time, and we hear on the radio that they caught the killer. Well, in our boredom, we decide to go to the house and check it out for ourselves, and that's when all the fun happens. So is this influenced by a case that really did occur in the neighborhood, or completely fiction? It's completely fiction.
how I get inspired by different things. In the area that I live, I drive around a lot, and when I drive, I get to thinking, wow, if this happened or this happened, that'd be crazy. So I write it down of, what a story, it could be. And in this case, it's about a group of friends that say that you were in a group of friends and one of them decided they were going to break into a crime scene and they're in there by themselves. Are you going to go in after them and risk getting in trouble, but saving them at the same time? Or are you going to bail on them and let them take the rap for it and just kind of let them, be in control of their own destiny? So there's a lot of, decision making and quick decision making and a lot of what ifs of what if I do this, what happens if I don't do this. It boils down to friendship of, hey, do I really want to get myself in trouble to help out my friend? Or get myself killed.
Right, exactly. That is the eternal question, especially amongst friends. And when it has to do with drinking, that just amplifies the whole deal.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's definitely the case here. Interesting.
Yes.
So for Unlisted Owner, it's completely work of fiction and found footage aesthetic. What do we see? Do we see a continuation of this film? Do we see another integration of a found footage concept in your upcoming projects?
We, like I said, we have a few projects, a few finished scripts that we'd like to do. We'd like to try to do a traditionally shot one the next time. I mean, I'm always open for an Unlisted Owner Part 2. But like I said, right now I'd kind of like to do a traditionally shot one and just kind of try our hand at that and see how it turns out. Just, to see, because managing a production crew is a lot different than just you with a camera with a digital transmitter that goes into another room that your assistant director's watching your movements and stuff. So it'll be a little bit different to actually do like a full production crew during a feature film, but I really want to try my hand at that to see how that goes.
Nice. And for filming Unlisted Owner, what type of technology was utilized? Are we talking about RED or DSLR?
No. We wanted to make it look as real as possible. The film is actually is in the very beginning of the film, the very beginning sequence. There's a thing that pops up, the text that says this footage has been edited together by the Lawford County Sheriff's Department, and we actually have evidence placards that kind of go in between the different scenes, which is kind of like my nod at silent films where they have the little cue cards in between the different scenes and stuff like that. But we just shot them on just a $500 Canon handheld camera is what we shot it on. We wanted to make it as real as possible, to make it look as believable, and instead of having to scale everything down, we kind of wanted that grittiness right off the bat to kind of make the audience think, did this really happen? Is this real footage? So that's kind of the path we decided to take on that.
Interesting. And I ask because most aspiring filmmakers, young filmmakers, younger than us, they take the found footage concept, they use their mobile phones, and they upload the videos to the Instagram, Snapchat, and compose their films that way. That's why it's so innovative, especially with the technology, the tools, and the online distribution. Everything's pretty much low cost.
Yes. There's a lot of stuff out there, that's for sure. And I mean, like you said, people are filming on iPhones. I mean, we just filmed on a couple of $500 cameras is all I can't even remember the exact model number. It was a Canon something. But yeah, like I said, there's no limit to what you can and can't do anymore. It's just amazing with the way technology is. And like I said before, I'm in Sumner, Illinois, in the middle of nowhere, and I was able to get my film as high as 9th on Amazon's Hot New Horror release list. So it goes to show you don't have to be in Hollywood, you don't have to be in California to be able to be a successful filmmaker.
It's just following the dream. That is the once I got the press release in my inbox and I was reading it over, it's just screams, just follow your dream, push onward, from the town, you starting your company and now reaching number 9. That's the whole basis of what this film is about.
Yep. You just have to believe in what you do, and you're always going to have critics, no matter no matter how good of a product you end up with in the end. You're always going to have people who knock down what you're doing or stuff they don't like. I mean, if you're trying to make a film to please everybody, you might as well not even try, because you're not. You just need to go after what you believe is a good product, and what you believe that whenever it's finished, you feel in your heart that you tried your best and this is what you ended up with. Don't try to make something to appease everybody. Just, go after what you believe in and what you think is going to be a good product. And, you'll be more successful that way, because you'll have the drive and determination, and you'll be able to really try to push what you're doing.
That is so true. And it's funny that you bring up the critics, because most recently, filmmakers, and we're not talking about the indie filmmakers, we're talking about Hollywood filmmakers, they have been in an uproar lately because of the critics who put down their film. And I feel that you're supposed to be thick-skinned, especially in the filmmaking business.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, people, there's been comments on Amazon, saying, that we're idiots, or, or this is horrible or awful, and you just got to think, for every bad comment, there's probably going to be at least 5 more people who are thinking, wow, this is awesome. You're doing great. Just don't let it get to you, and don't let it deter you. If you don't have a very successful run on your first film, that's all right. It's a learning experience. So just don't give up, and don't let what people say or what they rate your film or anything like that bug you. Just think, they probably hadn't even made a film. So, you at least got one up on them that way.
That is very true. That is very true. And also, to touch on that, when you read a negative comment, if it's in good taste, you mentioned, calling somebody an idiot is not good taste. But when somebody critiques your work and you take it and you mold it and you use that as, let's say, inspiration, so when you make your own next film, you make a note and say, okay, this person mentioned this, let me try this out and see if that really works. And that's how you evolve.
Right. Or, someone may say something that, oh, I never thought of it that way, or I never looked at it from this perspective. So it's good to have, both the positive and the negative, both. But like I said, whenever they try to go personal, don't take it personal, because they don't know who you are. They don't know what you came from. They don't know what you had to do to be able to get this product out there, because some of those negative comments that people say, they try to tear you down, and they don't realize all the hard work and the years and the amount of time you spend on a project.
Yeah, believe you me, everything is hard work, and it's good that you pushed forward and got this product out.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. And how long did it take you to compose the script? You mentioned the filming. How long was the idea generating?
Well, an honest answer. I was I was living at my parents' house at the time, and I was thinking about what I could do to make a film, and what would be a good story. And I came up with a scene that's in Unlisted Owner of a person being pulled up in an attic space. And I thought that would be a really cool scene in a film, and I could see it in a found footage film. So I kind of came up with a story based around that one scene, and I think I had the story in 2 days probably. And then I think we had finished the script in about a month, and then we started getting our locations the following month, and making sure everybody was good, and getting some of the people casted for a couple of the roles we didn't have. And then I think we ended up filming that following October. So I think it took us probably a total of 2.5 months to get all the way up to the filming stage. So it was really quick.
That's impressive. That's definitely impressive.
Well, thanks. Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of once I got the concept and I pitched it to my friends and they said, yeah, let's do it. It was kind of okay, next thing you know, we're filming.
Of course, everybody, hey, of course, you got to make a film. Yeah, count me in, of course.
Yep, there you go.
So what pulled your decision to go from the start to create a full feature film. Most filmmakers, when they're dipping their toes, they go for short film, 5-minute films, 30-minute film. Why just go full length the first shot around?
Well, like I said, we had done that teaser trailer, and I was pretty confident after we did the teaser trailer and after we had edited it together. I thought, well, I really think we could make a product that'd be pretty good, especially with some of the stories and the scripts that we had already written. So I was constantly, wanting to make a feature-length film. It's just, I was waiting for the right script and the right time. And we did the GoDaddy commercial contest, and that kind of really boosted my ego about being able to make something, like thinking, well, you can do this. I mean, you made a GoDaddy commercial and it got like 8th out of 539 videos. So why not try it and just see what happens? So we decided just to go ahead and go for it. And that's what we ended up with, was Unlisted Owner.
Great. Thank you so much for this insightful. I mean, we touched on the film more from a business perspective, because I'm always so curious, especially when a filmmaker is making his debut in horror and just comes out with the distribution, the marketing, and to achieve a level of success on Amazon such as this. So it always intrigues me from that business perspective and the creative perspective.
Well, I appreciate you asking those questions, because like I said, I'm hoping there's some inspiring filmmakers out there listening and just knowing that, hey, you can do it. Just, set your mind to it. As long as you have a good cast and a good group of, or even a good group of friends around you who's a good support system, you can accomplish almost anything.
Yeah, that is right. And there's also always pursue your dream. And if you fail, try again. And you fail again, try again until you succeed.
That's right.
And this is the part of the interview that is difficult, most difficult for the interviewee, yourself. And this is the part where I ask you to come up with one question. It doesn't have to be about filmmaking. It could be about anything, for the audience to answer.
What is your favorite found footage horror film other than Unlisted Owner?
That was a good right hook. I like that one. Very good question too. Even for me, man, that is a difficult one. I bet a lot of replies would be Blair Witch.
Oh yeah, of course, the granddaddy.
Right. But Hardcore Henry, I gotta admit, that was a pretty good film.
Yes. And I'm a big fan of Grave Encounters. I love Grave Encounters, especially the first one. That twist, I just love it. And the record films, it's kind of hard for me sometimes to follow along with subtitles with being a French film, but it's still a great film nonetheless, for sure.
Yes, that was. You're right. And where can audiences follow you or Unlisted Owner across social media?
Yeah, if you go to our website, we have a website at www.unlistedowner.com. You can find us on there. We also have a Facebook page. It's probably the most updated means of communication. If you just go to facebook.com and just look up Unlisted Owner, it'll pop right up. You can also find us on Twitter at Unlisted Owner, and then also on Instagram. And my Instagram is Mr. Jed Bryan. I also have updates on there as well.
Great, thank you so much for all this rich information on the business and creative side of filmmaking, especially from an indie side and horror. And best of luck to you, and happy holidays and happy New Year.
Happy holidays to you too, and thanks for having me on the podcast. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, and best of luck to your future endeavors, 2018 and beyond. I know our circle will close as pretty soon, especially with all the ideas that you have for us.
Oh yeah, well, I'll definitely be in touch, and if I have any updates, I'll definitely let you know.
All right. Thank you so much for your time and for this interview. And after my interview with Jed Bryan. Bryan had another informational tidbit that he wanted to share, so I immediately hit the record button so that way you, the audience member, could get another insight on the tribulations and obstacles that go through in an indie film production. And as you've heard, Jed Bryan expressed how he went through so much tribulations and obstacles to get Unlisted owner some distribution, and of course, look at the end result. It is on Amazon. So this is, consider this an extra part of my interview with Mr. Jed Bryan. Take a listen.
When we signed the distribution deal, the distributor had also required an M&E track. So, and you know what an M&E track is, I'm sure, where you have to separate the dialogue from the background sound. So we had to go back through this year from February to July and recreate every sound effect for the entire film.
Wow. That.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
See?
That's for the that's just for the foreign markets. The U.S. version, the DVDs, and what you see on Amazon and the screener are all the real sound effects that we actually filmed. But for the foreign markets, which I don't think there's any foreign releases yet, they want to be able to dub our voices. So every door close, every footstep, everything had to be recreated. Probably the funniest thing is I actually have a girlfriend in the movie, a fictional girlfriend named Andrea, and I give her a kiss in one of the scenes. So I needed a kiss sound, and since we had started the movie, I'm actually married now and have a baby on the way. So the kiss sound that we recorded is actually me and my wife. So whenever the foreign markets, whenever they watch it, they'll see me kiss a girl, but the sound will be me kissing my wife. So.
That will go perfect with the behind the scenes DVD release.
Yeah. That's one thing. On the DVD, they did allow us to have behind the scenes, but we were limited to 10 minutes for the disc, for the space on the disc. Unfortunately, I wish I could have added more behind the scenes stuff. But we were only able to allow about 10 minutes. So, and I wasn't even able to add any of the fake room stuff. I wish I was able to add that, but.
Well, there's always YouTube and the website.
Yes. Yes, for sure. Yeah. And that's one of the things I'll probably eventually do will be make another little behind the scenes thing and put it up on YouTube and let people check it out that way.
Exclusive interview. Actress, Bel Deliá.
The following interview is a two-parter with one introduction. On Wednesday, December 20th, 2017, and on Friday, December 22nd, 2017, I had the opportunity to speak with Bel Deliá. She was scheduled on December 20th, and screenwriter Helen Shang. She was on the 22nd of December segment. Both Deliá and Shang were part of the award-winning production titled Scratch. The film won the award for Thriller Short at this year's Women in Horror Film Festival. This was the debut/inauguratorial launch for this film festival platform. In my interview with Bel Deliá, we scratched the surface, pun intended, on the character Deliá portrays in the film Scratch. Also discussed is the psychological expression of the film and, of course, women's contribution in horror cinema over the years. These are just some of the topics we delved into in this interview. In the second interview, screenwriter Helen Shang went in depth on her period set psychological thriller, the invocation of suppression of the female model under a dominant male antagonist is portrayed eloquently in the short film Scratch. And Shang and I, without offering spoilers, so don't expect any spoilers here, we tackled the issues of the film Scratch and her vision. Not only that, do tune in to these interviews where these filmmakers, these performers express how the behind the scenes, their drive, what fuels them to create and to perform in the field of horror cinema, and not only that, but in film production in general. Scratch had success in the film festival circuit this year in 2017, and this short film will release in 2018 for the general public. No information is offered yet, and in these interviews, no information was leaked. So if you're expecting some, nothing will be offered. Stay tuned to DK Mag for further developments on the release of this short film Scratch. And without further ado, as I had mentioned, this interview is a two-parter with one introduction. First up is the interview with Bel Deliá, and second will be the interview with screenwriter Helen Shang. Of course, I'll be providing an intermission so you could distinguish each interview. My name is Ken Artuz, founder for DK Mag. Joining me this afternoon / this evening is actress, producer Bel Deliá. Thank you for joining me, Ms. Deliá, and setting the time for this interview.
Oh, you're welcome. It's so wonderful to join you. Obviously, I'm a new fan of Decay Magazine, thanks to Women in Horror Film Festival, actually.
And speaking of Women in Horror Film Festival, congratulations for garnering the award for Thriller Short. That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, look, with the company that we're amongst in the festival, which is a really, really wonderfully high standard, it was a real treat. And it was really nice because we got some really great nominations throughout our festival run and at the festival for Women in Horror Film Festival as well. But this one was nice because it was a team award. And yeah, so that was really lovely.
Yes, amazing, and congrats again. And for the members of the audience who are unfamiliar with your work and your career, please provide a brief backstory, origin story of yourself and your career.
Sure. Well, I would describe myself as an actress and producer primarily. I'm complimented by your saying I'm a writer, but I collaborate with writers, and I love creating stories and working out concepts. But I take my hats off to writers because it's such a skill, and that's more my background is in the production. I actually started in production, working for a broadcast station in like many years ago. Worked on everything from commercials to associate producing on a reality show to post-supervising 35mm neg on a documentary. And then, started getting into acting and started out in the indie horror scene with acting, because my first feature role was in The Tunnel, which was an indie horror that kind of went a little viral and got picked up around the world and downloaded. I think to date it's probably up to 15 million plus downloads around the world, and that really introduced me to coming over to LA and Screamfest. And if you can't tell, I've got an accent. Did I say I'm from Australia? I'm from Australia. So yeah, that really brought me over here to Screamfest, and I kind of fell in love with that indie filmmaking community and wanted to make the move over here. And I guess from there I've sort of changed gear a little bit, maybe into the more narrative work, hence Scratch, and also, developing a few other projects along the way.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm hoping that your peers would also be joining you in Los Angeles. The cast and crew from Alpha J Hemlock, they're still in Australia.
Yes, they're wonderful. Their film is really terrific. It's just so exciting to watch, and they're doing so great on the festival circuit. And it's always nice when the filmmakers behind it are just really good human beings, along with being very talented. So, yeah, I'm really thrilled for them.
Yes.
So yeah, hopefully they'll come over here. That'd be nice.
Exactly. And for the film Scratch, we reviewed it here on DK Mag, and it does have a very impactful story. The horror genre, horror cinema, is known for its social commentary, and I enjoy the social commentary that is presented in this film. No, without delving too deep into the plot, we see there's a psychological point of view of infidelity.
Yeah, I mean, it's based on a 1950s housewife who's left alone by her philandering husband and starts to hear noises in the house that are coming from within the walls. And the story just, it's definitely taken, which credit and hats off to Helen Shang, the writer of it, because it was a really lovely psychological twist on, a very almost Hitchcockian sort of feel of film with a little horror twist in there.
Yes, and it's very interesting that the era of the 1950s was selected as the backdrop, because that is the era in which women were more suppressed under male oppression, as opposed to today.
Sorry. It's kind of funny. I mean, I guess it's in many ways, I think we're seeing a lot now. We're like, wow, in many respects, we've come so far. And then in some respects, we've still got a long way to go. But, I guess that's the wonderful thing about film is like you said, it gets to be this social commentary where absolutely this is definitely a period film, and it's about, something that is taking place in that time period and what it was like then. But I think the cool thing about it is that there's many aspects which people could probably relate to, at any time, in any period.
Absolutely. And for the 2018 calendar year, Scratch is going to unveil for the general public.
Yeah, in a couple of ways. And I can only mention the online, that we are going to bring it to the general public online. But there's not much more detail I can go into yet. So hopefully people will jump on our, Facebook page and follow Scratch, because it's going to be definitely shared with the public in a couple of ways. So that's really nice. After a good, rewarding festival run, it's really nice to be able to get it out there and share it with a wider audience. So I'm excited about that, because I can't wait for people to see, the work of, it's Emma Bell's directorial debut. Many people know her as a very talented actress, and I just can't wait for people to get to see the work of everybody. Emma's first directorial debut, the work of our cinematographer and crew, and and the other cast and everyone behind it. It's, yourself how much blood, sweat and tears goes into indie filmmaking, and even on a short film level, it's it's really nice to be able to share it.
Yes, it's so true. And we're living in a great era right now that we have the internet, digital distribution, and also crowdfunding. So the indie filmmaker does have all the tools at his and her disposable as compared to a few years back.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it still takes a village, which is nice, because I think that's why a lot of us do it, because it is definitely more possible now, because you can go out there with whatever you have, in arm's reach, whether it's an iPhone or something else, and you can create something. But the nice thing is that it's always going to take a team and collaboration, and that's one of my favorite things about it.
Yes. And the Women in Horror Film Festival it definitely showcased women's role in horror cinema, of course. And from your perspective, how far and how much have women have progressed since, let's say, the 60s up until now?
As far as in the genre, or in like, what are you talking specifically about, the sort of filmmaking?
Well, both in the filmmaking process and also for characters, because back in the day, 60s, 70s, and early 80s, the female characters were more so submissive, but now we've seen an evolution.
Yeah, I mean, there are some like incredibly complex characters, I guess, out there in female characters that are shown, and they are so well received by the audiences. From what was the last Hidden Figures, the NASA?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, from that to then films like that I love personally, like The Others, and with Nicole Kidman, and Cracks with Eva Green, and you know, a lot of what Jessica Chastain's doing at the moment. There's, you know, it is so well received, and that's really nice to see. And I think it's just more of that, more power to it, because there's so many stories to tell that are like just as varied as male characters out there, you know. So it's good seeing more of it, and I definitely think we are seeing more of it. And I always prefer to err on the side of positive, that it's just going to continue. We're just going to all add our voices and continue to add to it on both sides, both male and female. I think, you know, it's never a discouragement, like we want less male roles or less male characters. We want more of everything. We want, you know, what, you know, a lot of the filmmakers, like, you know, I guess they brought to Tangerine and, you know, other things. We want to see a varied array of characters.
I agree. And everyone should have their own spotlight, shared spotlight, that is. And that is the only way film in general can progress in a positive avenue.
Yeah, definitely.
And for your career, you've served as producer, actress. Is there a particular field now that you want to venture in the upcoming years, let's say as a directorial debut in some sort?
Well, I mean, I actually did recently direct a short that's going to be a part of an anthology, which will be, I'm assuming, announced in the next, perhaps the next year. That was a lot of fun. Funnily enough, I love it and I enjoy it. It's rewarding, but my heart really belongs to acting and producing from the capacity of, I love collaborating with writers. I love being able to create content. So that's something I'm really passionate to pursue, is continue collaborating there, and with acting, you know, I mean, I love the horror genre. I mean, look, that's a community that I think once you are amongst, you can never shake it. And that's a good thing, because they are one of the most supportive, as you would know, like, communities out there. And no matter what I think you venture into, they'll always be supportive of that. So even though I have done some really cool sort of horror genre projects, I even did actually recently a very cool little horror VR series for Hulu, which was called The House. And those things I really adore, and I'm glad I've always got that horror connection. But I also would love to venture into, you know, more psychological dramas, you know, but I'll still stick to ghost stories and fantasy horror. I also love sci-fi, like more fantasy sci-fi, which I've got a film that I'm a part of that's in post-production, and hopefully we'll be hearing more about next year.
Oh, great.
Which is called The Tangle, by the way.
Yeah.
Always good to say the name. The filmmakers behind that are, the director is Christopher Soren Kelly, and Jessica Graham are behind that film. Looks to be a beautiful lyrical sci-fi. So I can't wait for that to get shared.
Right. I have your info pulled up, and you portrayed the role of Cleo in that film.
Yes, which is an interesting character, and it's one of the ones that it's a linking piece to, like, they'd actually shot a large portion of the film, and then my particular role is a beautiful and crucial kind of linking piece to the whole film. But I can actually probably not say two more without.
No.
It was a lovely role to do. So, yeah.
Okay, and you mentioned your preference to sci-fi and horror, and for these genres, what does it attract you the most, especially in portraying the role in such films such as The Tunnel and Scratch?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I really love the I don't know, you get to explore the real dark parts of what it is to be a human, and I think that's kind of nice. And in a way, I kind of think it's why everyone in the horror community seems like so sweet and lovely, because they go off and they explore these dark stories and these dark, they go to dark parts of their mind. And I don't know, I've always been fascinated with that, and I think everybody out there has got a kind of a dark side, and it's kind of interesting to explore that. So, and I also love that there's so many genres within horror and sci-fi. I mean, there's some things I'm not as much a fan of, but then I do love the more psychological fantasy, dramatic based, I guess, parts of it.
Yeah, that's the best thing about these genres. You have the comedy, you have the psychological dramas, and then on the far side, you have all the wicked stuff that is hard to watch.
Yeah, like I'm such a wimp. I'm such a horror wimp. Like, I will be the first to. I recently saw Don't Kill It. I think that was at Screenfest. It's Mike Mendez's film, and I just spent a lot of the time kind of like blocking my eyes and like looking up at the corner of the screen, but I had so much fun watching it. But yeah, so you can kind of have fun and enjoy one part of it, and then as far as when I create, that's when I love it to be the more slower burn, psychological kind of based stuff. That's what I love there. So, I mean, that's the beautiful thing about it, is like, there's nothing that is off limits, really.
That's a very, very interesting perspective. And I also got to bring up, because more women are coming into the genre, and they're putting on some fantastic roles. And these roles are more, let's say, role models for younger audiences, and they could adapt to the struggle being it as a female, and whatever the social commentary is, it's very much adaptable.
Yeah, I agree.
And so for the future calendar year, what, aside from the release of Scratch and for the tangible, what do you foresee in the upcoming year?
It's actually, just to correct, it's called The Tangle.
Oh, excuse me, The Tangle.
No. No, hey, we've got the accent thing going. It's totally fair. So, so of course we get to release Scratch with a wider audience, which is great. The Tangle, which is the lyrical sci-fi feature, we'll be getting word out about that. And then aside from that, I'm actually producing, so that's kind of more the acting side, and acting wise, I can continue to sort of develop work with, writers on those genres that I love. But that aside, producing wise, I'm actually in post-production on a docu-series called From Bottom to Top. And it's basically interviews that are Skid Row artists being interviewed alongside emerging or established artists in the industry. So you might have like a painter from Skid Row, and then they'll sit down with, and in fact we did interview director Mike Mendez as one of our interviewees. So Mike sat down with an artist who happens to be a Skid Row artist, and they just sit down in two directors' chairs, and they just basically talk about their passion and their art. So it's kind of taking the stigma out of homelessness and sort of taking an artist who happens to have had an experience with homelessness, but treating them as they should be, as an artist like anyone else, and then just hearing about what drives them to keep them going with their art, what they love about it, how it inspires them. So we've shot 8 interviews, and Emma actually, the director for Scratch, she was in one of them as well. We had a renowned soul singer, Ellis Hall, who sat down for one of the interviews, alongside the Skid Row artist. So it's really inspirational, and I'm really excited to get that out there next year. So yeah, just going through post-production right now. So that's definitely on the cards for 2018, alongside all the acting things that I mentioned as well.
Oh, I enjoy that, the premise behind the project you just mentioned. That I find that to be very inspirational. That's amazing.
Yeah, well, the way I guess I pitch it out there, and I will be, out there pitching it, is it's sort of a cross between Coffees and Cars with Comedians. I think that's the proper title. I've probably got that wrong. Alongside, say, actors on actors, like the Hollywood, I think it's Variety or Hollywood Roundtables, and then with a dash of like Humans of New York. So it's really just stripping it down there to 2 artists talking about their passions, and it has that really nice humanitarian kind of tone to it. So yeah, I can't wait to get that out there. I think it will be inspiring for a lot of people, no matter where you are in your career, really, whether you're working your way up or you've already made it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big supporter of really pursuing your dreams and believing in failure, because most people, most artists, filmmakers, they shy away from the failing part. They want to just go straight for the glory, and it doesn't quite work out that way. You have to fail in order to succeed.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think it'd be great if we could find a way around that. But you know what? Like, I mean, so many times, if something hasn't quite worked out, and then it's lit a fire under me, and then I've looked back later and I've gone, wow, actually, I wouldn't have done that film, or I wouldn't have been involved in that project if it wasn't for that failure or that missed opportunity, that thing I didn't get cast in, or that thing that didn't work out. There's always, it's always in hindsight, but it is good to look back, because you always have those experiences.
Yeah, and one thing that I'm a true believer in is not to get older, and I mean older like 90 or 80 years old, and have regret, because that is so bad. It's always about pursuing your dreams, going after it, and if you don't succeed, at least you said you tried.
Oh, exactly. And what's the point in kind of growing up and going, well, I should really give it up now, because now's the time to be. That hasn't happened to me, and I hope it never does. I hope no matter what, it's like, no matter what is the standard of like success, that even if I'm kind of 60 or 70 or 80 and I haven't reached whatever other people deem as successful, I hope that I just can't help myself and I just keep going.
Exactly. And in terms of your career in acting, I've interviewed a couple of other writers and actresses, and two in particular, actually, they mentioned that they strayed away from acting to pursue a career in writing, so that way they could find that they're giving themselves the work, because when they go to the casting calls, they don't get called. They don't want to be sitting around waiting for a call. Do you see that type of same thing happening to you, waiting for the call, or do you just want to pursue your career in the indie scene and keep moving forward?
Definitely, you've got to create your own stuff. I mean, it's something that I think actually took me. I've actually just recently become a citizen, actually, of United States. But I've been here 5 years, and it took me a long time. Scratch and the filming of my docuseries were the first steps in developing more here, because I think I was wanting to just get people calling me up and offering me things, or not offering, but even just, opportunities. I wanted them just to come at me. So I think it just took a bit more time, maybe because I have a production background. I'm like, oh, I just want someone else to create. But, I love it a lot, and I'm so glad I finally pushed myself into creating your own work, because I think it's necessity. Like, even if you're at the top of your game, you hear stories of people who are supposedly A-list talent, and they're missing out on roles that they would absolutely love to do. And, I think even some of those people would, like to ultimately create something. So it happens. Yeah, I think it's happening more and more, and it's really nice that it's looked at as a positive. If you're a writer, actor, or director, actor, or, actor, producer, I think it's a really good thing to do.
Yeah, and it's a good way to climb in the indie scene, especially you creating your own content, and you get to wear a lot of hats, and you gain the experiences in different fields of the film production.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's good to at some point wear a lot of hats. Like, even though maybe, even if you might create something that's not that great, but you directed it, wrote it, acted in it, held the boom mic. It's like, even if you didn't do the best job, I think it's an important thing to do, because I was lucky where I came up through production. So I was on set all the time, and I got to be around grips and gaffers and directors and producers. And then I went into post-production. I worked with people in editing and sound, and it was really nice, because you get a real respect for the other crafts,
Especially holding the boom mic. And that is a very strenuous job right there. Just holding that microphone, making sure it's at the right position.
Yeah, I know. It is. Like, it really is. Like, oh my God, sound is really often, I think it can be underrated. Sound technicians, sound recorders on set, and also post-production. It can add, and I think it did with Scratch, actually. Our sound department, from our the guy who was on set holding the boom, our recording sound guy, to post-production, they added so much to it. I mean, it really is another 50% of what's going on, from what you see on screen.
Yeah. Yes, and audiences would have to tune in for that, because there's so many elements in the film Scratch that just comes together so neatly in a nice thriller package.
Oh, great. I'm glad you think so. And I'm grateful for your review as well. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And it was great to be a part. We weren't there physically. We would be there in 2018, but in the debut, we weren't there. But we were there in spirit, and we took the opportunity to just review all the entrants and winners for this year's Women in Horror Film Festival.
Yeah, and if I had a chance to plug them every day, all day, I would, because two festivals that I adore. I mean, Screamfest definitely was such a big influence in coming over here. And I have to say, of late, like, Women in Horror Film Festival, their first year was just so impressive as far as how much they gave to the filmmakers. They were really generous with their time, and they've continued to kind of support everyone who is a part of the festival. So I hope to get back there, definitely.
Awesome. And this is the most challenging part of the interview, which I present the opportunity for the interviewee, yourself, to come up with a question for the audience to answer. It could be anything. It could be what were the lottery numbers? Anything that pops into your head.
Oh dear, gosh, that is challenging. I'd be interested to know, because I think there are so many wonderful things about horror, and you can certainly be a fan of like a slasher horror to really hardcore horror like that, to like the things that I love, like slow burn horrors. So I think it'd be a cool challenge to see if people can almost name their favorite genre within the horror genre. So it's kind of fun, to see, because I think it's great to see how many there are, and I think once you ask that question, you're going to get like, I don't know, there's probably like, pick a number, maybe 20 genres within the genre,
Right.
We should make it down and name them all. Yeah, everybody should name them. I think that would help.
Yeah, and the 20 genres would have more subgenres and more subgenres.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, how many can you name? I don't know. And what's your favorite?
Awesome. Thank you for that. And where can audiences find you on social networking?
Oh, I think it's just under my name. So I think on Twitter it's just at Bel Deliá, BelDelia, and same on Facebook and Instagram. But that's it. I stop there. I can't do anything else. Everything else is too challenging and far too, takes too much time. So
yeah, tell me about it. Social media has been such a key component on not just in horror but in filmmaking across the board. And I just learned some insight in a previous interview that actors are sometimes they get the part depending on how many followers they got.
That, you know what, I mean, that is true. But there's this whole crazy gray area in between where there's a lot of there's some genuinely really famous people out there, and then there's a lot of people who I come across, I'm like, how do you have, I don't even know who you are. But no, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I like it because I kind of prefer it to be this more like organic kind of, you meet people at festivals, you connect with them. It's a nice way to stay in touch and keep an eye on each other's work. So I love it for that. I mean, of course, it's like wonderful, like if you get on some big show or something really like some big hit series, of course, it's going to be a fantastic way to really utilize it, as what you're saying, utilize it for, look, I actually have a substantial following. That can be of use in your casting. I think that's absolutely happening. But yeah, till that day, I love following my fellow filmmakers and seeing what they're up to and, sharing with them as well. And yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. And to close it out, for the film Scratch, what is one element that really stood out for you, either in the script form or in the final product, that you want audiences to note on?
Wow. God, one. See, this is my problem. I actually would prefer to sit here and just list everybody involved and give them all props because everybody was amazing. But I know that you can only drop so many of your fellow crew people's names in there. So I don't know. I think it's just the feel of it, the tone of it. I feel it was really successful because when I first sat down with Emma and Helen, we all came up with that we were fans of certain films, and I feel like that carried through to then Helen with the script, and then what Emma did with it, and then Terry Zamalt was our incredible cinematographer, and the composition was done actually by Emma's brother, Chase Bell. So right from beginning to end, I feel like the thing that would stand out is that tonally, I think when we sat down and spoke about it, what connected us and what drove us to tell the story was there all the way through. So I feel like really proud of that, and really proud to have been a part of that, where I think that was the big success out of it.
Yes, and as I had mentioned earlier in our interview, I feel the social commentary, the audiences are definitely gonna reflect. I mean, for astute audiences, because some audiences just watch a film just about. No, pay attention to the social commentary. It's very good. I enjoyed that.
Oh, I'm so glad. It's nice when you put those little seeds in there and people pick up on them. So I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah, you're welcome. And once again, congratulations. Thank you for your time for this interview.
Thank you so much. It's been really lovely chatting with you. And, it always is lovely chatting with other creators and people out there in the community.
Absolutely, absolutely. And looking forward to your future projects, so what you have in store, especially for horror and sci-fi. I'm looking forward to seeing what the
The
future
Tangle.
holds. Yeah.
That's my latest pimp. The Tangle and From Bottom to Top is my personal, my passion project. So I'll pimp those till no end.
Great. And happy New Year and happy holidays to you and your family.
Yes, happy festive season to you too, and wishing you all the best for next year, for 2018. It's going to be a good one for everybody out there.
Oh yeah, I believe it. I believe I have positivity.
Yes,
that's the word.
Thank you, Ken. I really appreciate chatting with you.
Exclusive interview, screenwriter Helen Shang.
My name is Ken Artuz, founder for DecayMag, and joining me this afternoon actually is writer Helen Shang, and we're going to be discussing on her latest release, award-winning short film titled Scratch. Thank you for joining me this afternoon, Helen.
Thank you for having me.
Great. And I like to start off with an icebreaker, and which is an easy question for the audience members who are unaware of yourself and your career and your work. Please provide an origin story.
Ooh, an origin story. Well, I was born in Beijing, China, and I moved to the United States, to California, when I was very young. And I've always just wanted to write, and I started watching a lot of horror. So that was kind of the genre I was drawn to in terms of my creative work. So after college, I just came out to LA and started, I wanted to write for TV and features, and just started doing that and going the assistant route. And then I got onto a TV show. For writing, I got onto Hannibal, which was a good, first show, since I love horror and I love genre storytelling. And after that, my friend Bel Deliá contacted me saying, did you want to work on a short film together? So that's kind of how Scratch came about.
And speaking on Scratch, congratulations on winning the award for thriller short in the Women in Horror Film Festival.
Oh, thank you. Yes, that was really exciting, because this was a passion project for all of us, for Emma Bell, the director, for Bel Deliá, and for myself. So this, and everybody else who worked on it. So it was really cool to see that, we got recognized.
Absolutely. And the Women in Horror Film Festival 2017, that was the inaugural event. So that makes it even more special.
Yes. I think that's, I love that they have a film festival like this, because I think that, there should be more women storytellers in genre storytelling. So this is a really good festival to showcase that.
Oh, absolutely. And also on Scratch, I enjoyed the psychological social commentary that you have infused in this film, and I particularly find it of interest. It's set in a period, and it's a period piece where women were more suppressed under male dominance. Can you share some insight on this craft that you've provided for the audience?
Yeah, for sure. So, well, when we first had the idea for this film, it was basically Bel coming to me, asking, do you want to do a short together? And we started talking about what kind of stories that we were going to tell. And the first thing we both thought was let's make something that is more psychological, that like, is something that's different from like a slasher. Even though I like the genre, I like the slasher genre, it's something that we wanted to stay away from for this film. And so, like the time period, I kind of wanted to, like early on, we thought that we should do like a period piece so we can stay a little bit just farther removed from like contemporary society. We wanted to tell a story that was out of time. That was something that we could like watch at any time and be like, yeah, this is a little bit out of time. So that's kind of where that the period piece comes from. And that period, you got exactly right. That was like a time period where women were more suppressed than now. And I think they were forced to put on this, like kind of like in, what was that movie called? Far From Heaven with Julianne Moore. I think that was the name. But that kind of, they had to put on this sort of, veneer that everything was okay. And back then, I think a lot of women took, Xanax or other pills to make themselves happy. So we wanted to capture that. And also cinematically, the 50s, captured in cinema after the 50s, had that tone to it. People were drawn to the idea that there was this veneer of perfection and that under it there was something insidious, like movies like Pleasantville, which I think that was either 50s or 60s. But, we wanted to capture that time period in that way.
And that was a very clever way, because while watching the film, the theme, and we could read it on the synopsis, it's about infidelity. And I think the theme just fits perfectly with that era. If it would have been set in a modern piece, it would have had the same impact, but just providing that era in which women were more suppressed. Well, women now are more liberated and find out the husband is cheating and they'll kick his ass.
Yeah, so that's a great point, because Bel and I, when we were talking about this film, we were thinking of ideas of like entrapment. I think people are entrapped in different ways. And infidelity, exactly like you said. I think if this story was told now, it like, in Western society, yes, if your spouse was cheating on you, you could very well leave. There's no there's no societal pressure to be like, yes, you're going to have to stay with your cheating partner. But back then there was that, what will people think? This isn't what people do. So we wanted to tell that story then for it to have greater impact, for that element of it to have greater impact.
And spot on. Thank you for that. And also, the film Scratch also delves, as I mentioned, the psychological aspect of horror. And to me, in my interpretation while watching the film, there seems to be a sense of duality. What type of message were you conveying with this particular character and her duality and her problem?
I think at least in my mind while writing it, the two, the duality, which you aptly picked up on, basically is Lily, the housewife, and then the demon Lily, who is in the wall. And I think there could be several ways of interpreting it. Emma Bell, the director, when she was, when we were discussing this, she mentioned this could be interpreted as somebody with a mental illness, like bipolar disorder. Like that could be, and that's something that I didn't actually, like specifically think about while writing it. But I thought that was a great way of interpreting it. That is definitely a lens that where that she was looking at, not to put words in her mouth, but like, during our conversation. So I thought that was really a very, like one really good interpretation of that. As I was writing, I didn't have that specifically in mind, but I just thought about people who were repressed, who had to live one certain way, like, Lily, the housewife, perfect, trying to make the house look beautiful, standing by her man, even though she suspects he's cheating. And then the duality is like that sense, demon Lily is that sense of like, the rage that she has inside of her, that, and also like that sexuality that she has inside of her. She's the one who's like getting made up and seducing the husband after she puts real Lily in the wall. So it's like a representation, I guess, of like the id of that character that has been literally pushed away inside of her.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is now like, represented as being pushed into the wall.
Exactly. I did catch you hit the right phrase when Emma Bell directed the film. She provided some key hints on it could be mental illness, because when the character Bel Deliá portrays, she's sitting, she's making, putting makeup on her face, and the mirror is slightly crooked, so we see an off-centered reflection. So that's what it's trying to convey, and then that was my interpretation.
Oh, that is awesome. That's something that, like, as a writer, like, I didn't actually write that, but the fact, Emma and Terry, the DP, they were working together so well. It was a joy to see Emma and Terry Zuma, our DP, work together. But like, having that moment and hearing your interpretation of that crooked, like slightly crooked mirror is so great.
And Scratch is going to release, well, after a successful run in the film festival this year, is going to release in January for the general public. I know information is still mum at the time, but congrats on that as well. That's another big achievement right there.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So after we made the film, Bel Deliá, and she's just been like just so good and so proactive in steering the ship on, like, trying to get a bigger audience for this film and doing that. So I'm very excited that, like, people, because it's a short film. We make it for a passion project. We don't really think, at least for me, I don't think that it's expected for it to be released, So that was a joy when she told me about that.
Yeah, it's funny how passion projects evolve on their own, and ultimately it becomes a full-fledged dedication, and before you know it, you could be seeing a full feature film in production based on this short film. And if that were to occur, what would your insights be on that?
Ooh. Like, if that were to occur, a feature, I think this has a lot of potential to definitely be a feature. I write features as well, so this would be really good, especially to work with the same people and to have that blossom out. I haven't really thought about the details of that yet, but could be good to think about.
And I mean, the short film is fantastic. You have Emma Bell in her directorial debut, and this is your first dedicated passion project, as you put it. So far, what has the emotional been for the success has this film has generated so far?
You mean for myself or
Yes.
from other people? Well, this is actually the second short that I've written that has been produced. This actually met Bel Deliá because of the first short that I did, which was a sci-fi short called Distance, and that was something that I co-wrote with the director Amy Long on it. And Bel was an actress in it, and then we connected, Bel and I, and we hit it off. We developed a friendship, and this is how Scratch came about. And so emotionally, I think was really valuable to me for this one was like I feel like I worked very closely on it with the director and with the actor, and during like the production, I unfortunately wasn't able to be on set for the first one, so this one I was, and just seeing it come together was so great. I really emotionally felt like I just love seeing other people who are good at what they do, come together and make a project together. It felt very fulfilling. As a writer, that's what I love. I love seeing when something of mine gets actually shot. I don't think that feeling will ever go away of like, wow, this is really incredible seeing everybody who's so talented, work to put those words onto the screen and add their own insights, add their own interpretation. Because there's always something that, like, whenever they bring out something that I didn't think about when I was writing it, that's when I'm the most excited.
Yeah, I have to agree. And that is a stage that I personally have to get up on, because I love writing, and I've written scripts. It's just taking it to the next level. That's the part that I need the push. And from your experience, hearing your origin story, what advices would you give someone such as myself who is trying to move on? You have the script, you have the dedication, but you just want to move on to the next level.
Let's see. Well, I guess it depends if it's let me try to think. Advice I think, first of all, keep writing is an advice that try to think of like the advice I would tell myself when I was before I had anything produced. And definitely keep writing, keep working at the craft, and keep networking with people that you feel like you want to work with, because that's how Scratch came about. I met Bel, and she was like, let's make something, and I was like, yes, let's actually do it, so and she networked with other people, and when I say network, I mean like from a genuine place, not from like a sleazy, slimy place, but like a genuine, I like your work, I like your talent, and let's work together. So that's what I mean by networking. And I think don't be discouraged by setbacks, because I in the past had several shorts that I wanted to make and really tried hard to make, but for one reason or another, just fell apart. And I'm so glad I didn't give up, because or else Scratch wouldn't have happened. I think just keep writing and keep bettering the craft. I think I read somewhere somebody said, like, make it impossible for other people to say no to your work, which is like advice that I've always took to heart. Every time I write something, I'm like, okay, the next one I can always do better. I can always be better.
and that's the best part of being a creative artist, whether you're a musician, a writer, an actor, is that the daily struggle of becoming better and better and not getting influenced by the negative feedbacks and or the rejections, especially in the field of cinema.
Yeah, you're so right about rejection. There is a lot of rejection. Like I said, like some of the short projects I've had before, like, got so close and then they fell apart. And, it's just like, it's a hard feeling because you really wanted to work on it and you spent a lot of time on it, but unfortunately it didn't work out. And, before I got started in TV, I was submitting for fellowships and submitting for mentorships and got rejected from a lot of those. And like, there will be so much rejection in my future. It's just the nature of the thing. I guess you just have to have a thick skin about it and know that that the stuff that you put out will not be to everybody's taste. To be humble enough to accept criticism, like constructive criticism, but also know that the thing that you're making is not going to be to everybody's taste. There will always be somebody who thinks of your work negatively, and that's okay, But to really just, I guess, for me, it's like really listen to myself and be honest with myself if I think something is solid or not. That's kind of what I try to do.
Right. Thank you for that. And also jumping back to your origin story, coming over into LA and pursuing your path as a writer, what is it that drives your dream? What is it that pushes you forward each day to become this writer? Most people give up and say, yeah, I tried writing and let me now go into the 9-to-5 field, and they give up. So what pushes your drive?
I don't think I've ever wanted to do anything but be a screenwriter. I came here, I did not have like a fallback plan of if this doesn't work out, I'm going to go, be another thing. This is the only thing I've ever wanted to do career-wise, was to write. And I think what drives it is this: when I was young, all I've had were I've just loved writing recreationally, and like that's just my thing, I guess. I don't know why some people want to act, or some people want to write, or some people just want to sing. This is like the only thing they want to do. So yeah, and so I think that just no backup plan, just wanting to do this, and it was based on a lot of the advice that people told me when I was first starting out. People were like, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So in the first couple of years out in LA, there's always exceptions, but chances are you're not going to really get anywhere. You're going to be doing assistant work, which is good, but like you're not going to, just write your first movie and sell it. There's always exceptions to that, but a lot of people were telling me that, and and I was like, okay, that's what it takes. It's going to take a lot of years of not having, not seeing your name up in the lights, and not suddenly just stepping on set on the first thing that you've written. And knowing the reality of that, I think helped me stay in the industry just in the beginning part where things were very hard and people weren't reading me, and I had to really hustle to try to find an agent and try to try to find people I wanted to work with. That's kind of that honest feedback from people who have already been there, that it's going to take a long time, kind of drove me and made me think, I'm okay. It's not ready to, I'm not ready to throw in the towel yet.
And never that phrase should never come into the mind.
Yeah, I have friends who are writers, and a great writer friend of mine. She told me that she had been an assistant for 9 years before she started writing. She got staffed on a TV show, and she's amazing. And I'm so glad she didn't just say, I'm not going to do this anymore because I don't want to be an assistant anymore. I'm so glad she hung in there. And I have so many other friends who started out not doing the thing that they, ultimately wanted to do, but they hung in there. So seeing that happen around me also was very inspiring. That's great.
And touching up on my previous questions on what drives you, it also ties in because in varying cultures and beliefs, parents are often suppressing the dreams of kids when they're growing up. They want to become writers, they want to become actors, and parents are still in the old school, and we use that term. And there is no money in that field. Go be a lawyer, go be a doctor. And now times is changing, and now you could just go on YouTube. You have your cell phone as a recording device, so the opportunities are open for the creative field.
Oh, yeah. I think you're totally right about YouTube. Like, these more the digital platforms are giving so many people a voice, and just having different forms of entertainment. Before it was, we didn't, so like there's a lot of things on YouTube that I wouldn't have watched before, that just like very entertaining digital shows that very popular, like millions of hits, that there just wasn't that genre of stuff before. But to like what you were saying about parents, yeah, definitely. Like, yeah, I come from a Chinese American family, and like my parents initially definitely was like, you want to be a TV screenwriter? That's crazy. People don't really understand it. And also, like, they took such a huge risk coming to America and to, make a better life, and to have, their child choose something that is very, very risky, that isn't guaranteed. Like, stability is not guaranteed. They, I think, it makes sense that they initially were like, are you sure you want to do that? But my parents are actually, I think they've been overall pretty supportive. I'm so glad that the main opposition is just the regular stuff that emerging artists have to go through. But I didn't have to deal with all that stuff and deal with my parents' criticism. I'm very grateful for that they really understood that, like, I really wanted to do this, and I really wanted to give it a solid few years, struggling, being an emerging artist, before I guess, before saying any of, like, hey, maybe you should give up stuff. So I'm so glad that they didn't do that. Yeah.
Oh, that's great that you had a great support system, and that really inspires you to just keep on moving forward.
Yeah, I think, it's just like everybody has so many challenges out when they come to LA to, pursue their dreams. But I'm just so grateful that my parents were not one of them to always be like, no, stop. But even though, like, don't get me wrong, they have definitely, like, you know, asked me if I wanted to be a doctor or be a lawyer, things that were more stable. But it was never like a crazy, you know, conversation where they're like, we're going to cut you off or anything.
It's funny.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that the horror is a big attraction for you. In the upcoming years, 2018 and beyond, will we be seeing more screens, more scripts in this field, or you would venture into something different?
I'm currently on a TV show that I can't talk about yet, but it's actually sci-fi, which is going to be. I'm very excited for it. I love what we've come up with so far, and it's been so, like, the working experience has been amazing. So fingers crossed that I can talk about it in the future. And I'm currently writing some stuff on my own, one of which is a horror feature. So I really want that to go somewhere. I'm currently still, you know, still going through drafts and working with my manager on that. But yeah, that one, the feature I wrote is definitely like a horror, and I'm very excited, and fingers crossed what happens with that. And some other projects that are still like in the early phases that are genre, so but with horror elements to it.
Awesome, great. And being that the internet is a great resource for upcoming, well, I'm not using the word upcoming, for filmmakers and writers, do you foresee any of your projects going on to crowdfunding and getting help, support from the horror community?
I'm sorry, could you ask that again? Do I foresee
using crowdfunding sources for any of your upcoming projects?
I have never, I'm not too sure. I still haven't tapped into crowdfunding yet, unfortunately, because I see, like, a friend of mine use it very effectively for her comedy drama pilot, like an independent one that she made, and she raised, I think, over $10,000 with crowdfunding. I wish I knew how to effectively use crowdfunding, but so far I haven't been able to tap into it and, like, how to make the most effective crowdfunding campaign, how to go about that. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't have too much there. Except that I guess it works. I mean, I was so happy to see my friend do her crowdfunding campaign for her project, which she has been working for years on, and she's so passionate about it. And to see that happen, to see her raise like over $10,000 is very inspiring.
She's one of the lucky ones, because I've seen projects that go on crowdfunding and they don't meet the goal, and much more or less $10,000. That's amazing. So she's one of the lucky ones.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I'm trying to think what she did. She did one of those Facebook Live things. So it was like she and her friends they got onto Facebook Live, and they basically did, like a crowdfunding drive, just live. She's a comedian, so she was kind of like a comedy show for a couple hours, or I don't remember really how long she went for, but that I think was really helpful.
Oh, that's so. It was pretty much.
She was on Facebook Live.
It was like a online telethon.
Yeah. That's the word. Yeah, telethon. She definitely held it like a telethon, and she was, she had her friends. She had the her director and other people who were attached on the pilot, and then she had her like comedian friends. They were coming in and out, and it was like a telethon. So that worked for her.
Good tactic. I'm writing that down. That's a good tactic. And this is
maybe I'll use that.
Exactly right. Well, this is the challenging part of the interview, in which I asked the interviewee to come up with a question for the audience to answer. The question could be anything that jumps into your mind, and feel free.
I think, okay, so somebody, okay, so there were people who say, like, the best stories, the best horror comes out of what you most personally fear to talk about, to write about. So what is the thing that you most fear, that you don't want to write about, that you don't want to create? Because that's usually where the best material comes out of.
Wow. That's really delving into the dark core of a psyche.
Yeah. Somebody who is, I don't remember if I read it on Twitter, because I'm always on Twitter, or if it was like, a writer or an artist saying that in a podcast or an interview. But that always stuck with me, because I'm like,
that's interesting.
Gotta go to those places.
That's interesting. I like that one. And now we jump on to social media. Where can audiences find you and follow you across social media?
You can follow me on Twitter at Helen Shang. And that is the only thing that I think I regularly update.
Wow,
yep.
That was just one. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, just one.
Right. Oh, with the popularity of Facebook and Instagram, I was surprised you didn't add those as well.
Oh yeah, my Facebook is like my private with friends circle. And okay, so I have an Instagram that is like, it's just me posting old photos, like vintage photos that I found and vintage photos that I like bought from various places, but I haven't updated it in a while. But if you want to check it out, it's Helen Ephemera.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, but I haven't updated it in a while.
So that makes no wonder I've come across the pictures, and okay, now it makes sense. It was probably from your collection.
Oh really? Oh yeah, yes. So yeah, I was like, because I never really got into Instagram, and so, but I also wanted to get an account. So I'm like, what can I post? Oh, I love old photos. Let me just post those. But now occasionally I want to post something from my life, and I'm like, no, I can't ruin it. That's the account. So yeah, but all my ramblings are on Twitter.
Well, you could always open another account, but there is a large community of people with that share also a fondness for vintage pictures. So I'm sure you'll get a large following soon.
I hope so if I update. But it definitely, yeah, I love vintage things, and especially vintage photos, because you can tell a story with them. You can, if you see a photo that it's like very evocative. Some photos just really pop and stand out to me because I think, what is that person thinking? That there's like a story there. And so I love those photos, and I love especially kind of like the off-kilter creepy ones. The ones where, two people are standing there smiling and you see a third person kind of lurking in the background. I love stuff like that.
Right. So now we know where the influence from scratch arises from vintage photos.
Yeah. There's, it could have been subconsciously influenced
Right.
by one of them, because I definitely, there was a photo that I have that's like, I think it's a wedding photo, and in the background there's a shadow of somebody who's just like a silhouette,
Yeah.
which I thought was very cool.
See, the mind works in mysterious ways, and here you are, award-winning short, just from one photo.
Yeah, that idea could have actually come from that. I don't know which one came first, but yeah, it's all tied in.
Great. Thank you so much for this interview, for your time, especially now in the holiday season.
Ken.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you so much. It was so nice to talk with you, and I hope you have a wonderful holidays too.
Video games, Botlike. A Robots Rampage Steam Early Access.
Botlike, a Robots Rampage, is currently on early access on Steam. In this game, it is classified as a loot and shoot, and you work your way through hordes of robots or die trying. In the game Botlike, a Robot's Revenge, you portray the role of Sir, S-I-R, a grumpy old warbot on his path to revenge. In this platformer, it is an action-packed and in rogue-like manner. This is according to the press release. Through randomly generated and graphically impressive worlds, the player struggles to the heart of the totalitarian robot league to deny the grand finale. On the way, he finds many weapons and components for his bot, which is freely designable at any time. So every new beginning becomes a unique gaming experience. Botlike, a Robot's Revenge, is scheduled for full Steam PC release in 2018. Here is a quote from Bjorn Klassen, lead developer for Botlike, a Robot's Revenge. Quote, Botlike is in early access since September, and with regular patches, a lot of content has been added. With the new champion system now in place, we are currently working on the next big patch. It would include the long-awaited second level, which will be set on a mech graveyard. It's the big step on our roadmap through early access, and it would add several more hours of playtime with new places to explore, new encounters to master, and new secrets to be found. New tracks will be added to the already great soundtrack for more atmosphere, and new mechanics will challenge your skill as you fight yourself through horde of new enemies. Unquote. Now, the game is currently at 20% for Steam Winter Sale, and this is running from December 21st to January 4th, 2018.
Hanako. Honor and Blade.
Hanako, Honor and Blade is a samurai ninja multiplayer game currently in early access on Steam. In this game, the gamer travels through a beautiful fictional rendition of the 16th century feudal Japan. Gamers would choose between 4 types of warriors, and you learn to master intuitive directionally driven swordplay while also choosing unique abilities to ensure victory of your foe. The characters in the game are the Kenshi, a swordsman, the Naginachi, a pikesman, Ninja, the assassin, or Aiti, the archer, all featuring their unique style of combat, movement, and weaponry. In the game, the gamers master combat through discovery of different attacks, abilities, and combos. The combat system features multiple offensive stances driven by your movement and defensive techniques such as the grappling hook and abilities ranging from acrobatic combos to multi-enemy sweeps to multi-hit combos. Here is a quote from Matthew Caney, lead developer for Hanako, Honor, and Blade. He states the following, quote, "Our primary objective with Hanako, Honor, and Blade is to create a deep artistic multiplayer world that allows players to experience our own fictional feudal Japan and what it is like to be a samurai or ninja. We poured our personal tragedies, losses, and souls into this title to create a symbolic journey of life and death, sickness and disease, and love and war. We created a melee-centric game that is easy to learn but difficult to master, that brings in a familiar but faster-paced directional attacks and abilities. Players will campaign across multiple maps and game modes, experiencing the strikingly different territories of two clans and their war of steel and fire. Ultimately, they represent a war of the lost loved one with a terrible illness. We hope the player may discover inspiration from this, or at least learn a bit about the way of the samurai." Unquote. Of course, gamers can find Hanako, Honor, and Blade in Steam's winter sale that is running December 21st, 2017 to the 4th of January 2018. The rollout for this sale includes a 50% off for this game. And here are some key features. You have epic online battles, directionally driven combat, distinct warrior classes, and symbolic online campaigns. So do give this a try if you have Steam for PC gamers. Check out Hanako, Honor, and Blade.
Trailer first impression. Desolation.
Do you know who that is? No. That's Jay Cutter. He's an actor.
What are you doing for lunch, Katie?
He asked me to go to Los Angeles.
Just be careful.
How long will you be staying? As long as I can keep her.
Every old building in LA has a story.
There are a few high-profile suicides in the 60s, murders in the 70s. Never really recovered.
Love me.
The trailer I'm about to review is for the film Desolation, and if you jump on IMDb.com, there are two different films for Desolation. The one I am referring to is directed by David Moscow and is written by Craig Walensiak and Matthew McCarthy. There is no plot listed on IMDb, so therefore the trailer is providing the sum of what the film is about. And watching the trailer, my first impressions are I am interested in watching this film clearly because of the psychological thriller aspect behind the film. The camera work looks good, and the acting is, they do not convey any type of B movie like quality, which is great. I truly despise it when the acting is terrible, yet the concept is good. So in this trailer, the hints offered, you can see that the acting is is good, spot on. Anyway, it is hard to assess what this film is about because there is certain elements that is going on. Are we seeing a psychological breakdown of a female over what her boyfriend / movie actor commits suicide? That's the impression I'm getting, because that is the hint that was offered in the trailer. Or is the female character in this film suffering delusions inside her mind? Is she the one who committed suicide and she's trapped inside her mind? Interesting. Nevertheless, I'm interested in watching this film. It's going to release in 2018. According to IMDb, it will be the 26th of January 2018. This is a thriller. And as I had mentioned, there's no plot on IMDb. So basically, you're relying on the trailer to get any type of sense of what the movie's about. You can't rely on trailers 100%. They're just an advertising gimmick ploy to attract viewership. The whole basis of a first impression segment for this podcast is to break down the quality of the acting, of the cinematography, and to get a basis of what the film is about. It is not to lure or have any type of influence if we're going to see it or not. What I'm looking at is the cinematography. Great, that works for me for this film, Desolation. The acting, as I had mentioned, is spot on. It looks good compared to the trailer. The overall theme, I have no idea what the fuck is going on here, so I will watch the film just out of curiosity's sake. The trailer did not convey anything to me in sense of what this film is about. So with that said, I'll wait to the 26th of January 2018, but stay tuned for DK Mag for a full film review for Desolation.
Winchester. The house that ghosts built.
We were fascinated by the woman Sarah Winchester, so we came to the house, and we sort of got a tour, and we sort of fell in love with the story, and that's really where it started for us. And we essentially went back and rewrote the script and sort of molded it around our experience at this house, and included the things we really liked about the house, which is some of the incredible rooms here, but also we were fascinated by the legacy of Sarah Winchester, her story, the notion that, you know, she was haunted by all the souls that were killed at the hand of the Winchester rifle is a fascinating blueprint for a story. And then as we researched and learned more about Sarah Winchester, you know, we learned that she was an inventor, she was a builder, and she was just a fascinating, progressive woman.
Back in August 2016, DecayMag first reported on the supernatural thriller centered on the Winchester mansion. And not only that, the film centers on Sarah Winchester. For those in the audience who are unaware of the Winchester mansion, this is as spooky as it gets. There is a sprawling mansion, 160 rooms, countless bathrooms, fireplaces, and 3 basements. I think it also has 3 elevators, but the rooms in this mansion are weird and defy any type of modern architecture, because if you enter one room and one room would be sealed off, and the next room next to that would lead you fall into your death because it opens the door to the outside. So everything is rearranged in a way that just, it's mind-boggling. And Sarah Winchester dedicated her life after her husband's passing to create this mansion, so that way spirits for those who were killed by the Winchester rifle would not come back to haunt her. So they would enter this home and be confused with these intricate rooms and the patterns and the layout. The construction for this mansion ceased once Sarah Winchester passed away. Now, Sarah Winchester was heavy into the occult. She would have seances, conduct seances in her home. She had one room dedicated just for seances. And in fact, the Winchester mansion was on 2 separate occasions featured in the reality show Ghost Adventures on the Travel Channel. So if you want some insight, go check up on those episodes. The Winchester mansion featured on Ghost Adventures. So here we have a behind the scenes look, a tour rather. This video is a tour of the Winchester mansion. It runs 8 minutes long, and it is narrated by the director and co-writer Michael Spierig. Michael Spierig is joined in the directorial seat by Peter Spierig, and they both are co-writers on this film alongside Tom Vaughn. The synopsis for Winchester is as follows. Eccentric firearm heiress believes she is haunted by the souls of people killed by the Winchester repeating rifle. The film stars Helen Mirren in the lead role as Sarah Winchester, Sarah Snook, Jason Clarke, Agnes Sampson, and Eamon Farron. Before I was going to jump the gun on this one, IMDb states that February 2nd, 2018 is the release date for Winchester, the house that ghosts built. I am intrigued by this film. It is a PG-13 supernatural thriller. Needless to say, I'm interested because in this video provided, the director, Michael Spierig, goes into detail on how the script got rearranged just to go with historical accounts on what happened in this home and surrounding Sarah Winchester. That's great. I'm intrigued with how these filmmakers are going to put the supernatural elements with historical fact and provide an entertaining escape for horror connoisseurs. We have seen a great marriage between horror and, supernatural horror and historical fact with films such as The Conjuring. And these films are interesting because the audience member has to think, okay, yeah, this situation did occur, and or historical fact, it is written down. Yes, Sarah Winchester did deal with the occult, and she did build this house to confuse spirits affected by this firearm. Interesting. I'm intrigued by this plot, have been since we first reported it here on DK Mag back in 2016. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in to DK Mag Podcast Season 6, Episode 10. It is the holiday season, Christmas Eve. Christmas is right upon us, and as this podcast release, it would be either Christmas Eve or Christmas. And yeah, while the panilin arroz con gandules is prepping in the kitchen, I am in the studio preparing this podcast for you, the listener. That is how I dedicate my time. Yes, I'm working up an appetite. We don't have the dried turkey, and we don't also have the oversaturated salty ham. In any event, thank you for tuning in. In 2018, we'll be presenting DK Mag Sessions, which is a standalone podcast featuring one-on-one interviews with filmmakers, musicians, writers in the field of horror cinema. These will be standalone interviews apart from DK Mag Podcast, which is currently ending season 6. We're going into season 7 pretty soon. And so it is our dedication, our expansion into covering and providing more content in the field of horror cinema. We are expanding. DK Mag is ever growing, and we are venturing in different realms. If you haven't already seen on our website, we would also be providing a radio cast titled Bondage and Circuitry Radio. And there we will be presenting tracks from industrial, EBM, goth, witch house, and I will be also securing some interviews with musicians in the field, both indie and, well, this is not a mainstream music genre, so it will be indie and higher indie, as well as film composers dedicated that also infuse these music genres in horror films. And there are quite a few. It's surprising, but there are quite a few. Last week, I had an interview with Charlie Clouser, former member for Nine Inch Nails, and he also provides the soundtrack for the film Jigsaw and the Saw franchise. Trent Reznor, also from Nine Inch Nails, also branched out from his composition in industrial music on a more mainstream level into film composition, such as Resident Evil. And so this is our continued growth into horror cinema music, and I am putting it out there. DK Mag is going to establish itself as a dominant source in entertainment journalism. With that said, thank you for tuning in. You can follow DK Mag on social networking platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, MeWe. We are everywhere. You could also find this podcast on Google Music, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. Thank you. Please share our podcast, and happy holidays to everyone, to all our listeners. My name is Ken Artuz, founder for DK Mag.